All right, good morning, friends, and good afternoon and evening to those who are tuning in from across the ocean. My name is Alex. These are the Evolve Well breath sessions, and this is our special monthly Saturday edition. So, hope you're feeling comfy and settled. Maybe you've got your warm cup of tea or your water or whatever you need to go on a journey. And today I'm going to be reading a little bit from Francis Weller, who I've spoken about in previous sessions. Amazing author and facilitator of grief ritual. And this is sort of building on a grief ritual that I did on Wednesday night in person here in Victoria. And that's building on some of this digging deep into my own ancestral lineage and looking at how much scarcity thinking and fear has shaped my own nervous system. And I'm sort of on this quest to go back even further in my European lineage to a time when the standing stones were built, to tap into the resource and the resilience and the strength and the guidance of what a culture that was capable of moving 100-ton stones for 100 miles, what they were capable of feeling and experiencing in their lives. And so the reading is a precursor to the intention of doing some specific healing work that asks us to be our own great mother and hold the wounded and discarded parts of ourselves as though a caring mother would. Looking back at this European culture that built these incredible monuments of stone at a time where honoring the goddess and orienting culture around matriarchal guidance was a process that occurred over thousands of years and was very successful, of consensus governance and reciprocity with the land. And that in my studying back of what language was like back then, a lot of sacred language came from the communication between mother and child. And so where we are now is having inherited many thousands of years of that being broken and taken from us. And so I'm on this quest to reconnect with that bloodline, that life-giving resource. And my understanding of these beautiful standing stone monuments is that they contain the wisdom of these people. But in order to access it, for me, I've had to really learn how to grieve what was lost. I can't just go straight to the stones because some part of me is not fully able to feel what was lost in order to connect with what's still there. So I'm going to read this piece of work of Francis Weller's. He has this incredible philosophy around the different gates of grief, 5 different gates. We're going to read about the second gate today. And this is, again, sort of a way of setting the stage for what it is that we're holding when we invite in this divine feminine presence inside of us to remother a part of us that feels like we just don't belong. And then after that, we're going to transition into meditation and breath work and using our voice. And I always encourage in these sessions to really make this practice yours. I can be offering guidance and a framework and instructions on how to breathe and how to be with your voice. And the invitation is also to really honor what your needs are. So if something that I'm guiding you to do is not what you are requiring in that moment, it's okay to just take your freedom and make this practice really yours. So these are really just suggestions that come from my own practice. When it comes to the part where we're going to be singing, the invitation is to be sitting upright and using your voice as though it's a finely designed instrument, which it is. And that requires a certain mechanics of being upright. Not rigid, but balanced in your posture. And then when it comes to breathing and doing more rhythmic breath work, you can do that seated or lying down. Or you can move. If any part of you wants to get up and stretch around, that's okay. As always, we recommend good quality headphones, earbuds, or a really good Bluetooth speaker, or home stereo if you still have something like that from back in the day. Just listening on laptop speakers or phone is really going to miss out some of the important frequencies that I'm broadcasting in the sound. So if you need to take a moment to grab your favorite setup, please do that now. So the second gate, the places that have not known love. There is another entrance to grief. The first gate is everything that we love we will lose. And that's a deep one, and we can go back there sometime. But for now, we're at the second gate. Different from the gate connected to losing someone or something that we love. This grief occurs in the places often untouched by love. These are profoundly tender places, precisely because they have lived outside of kindness, compassion, warmth, or welcome. These are places within us that have been wrapped in shame and banished to the farthest shores of our lives. We often hate these parts of ourselves, hold them in contempt, and refuse to allow them the light of day. We do not show these outcast brothers and sisters to anyone. And we thereby deny these parts of ourselves the healing salve of our love and of community. These neglected pieces of soul live in utter despair. What we perceive as defective about ourselves, we also experience as loss. Whenever any portion of who we are is denied, we live in a condition of loss. The proper response to any loss is grief, but we cannot grieve for something that we feel is outside the circle of worth. Okay, we cannot grieve for something that we feel is unworthy. That's our predicament. We chronically sense the presence of sorrow, but we're unable to truly feel it and grieve it because we feel in our body that this piece of who we are is unworthy of grief. Often the resulting mechanic of this separated part of ourselves is shame. That's the experience of it. Shame ruptures our connection with life and with our soul. It is indeed a sickness of the soul. When feelings of shame arise, we pull back from the world, avoiding contact that could cause or risk exposure. The last thing we want in times of excruciating self-consciousness is to be seen. We find ourselves avoiding the gaze of others. We become silent and withdrawn, all in hopes of slipping under the radar. So I just want to invite you to just take a breath and let it go. And just accept and allow the parts of ourselves that live in shame. Notice where they live in the body, and can we just bring a breath, and with that a little bit of love and compassion to those discarded parts of ourselves? Can we just start with acceptance that that is what it is? So if it feels comfy, perhaps placing a hand on the heart and acknowledging that shame closes the heart to self-compassion. We live in an internal state best characterized as self-hatred. In order to loosen shame's grip on our lives, we need to make 3 moves. The first is from feeling worthless to seeing ourselves as wounded. Worthless to wounded. The second emerges from the first and is a shift from seeing ourselves through the lens of contempt to one of a budding compassion. And the third is moving from silence to sharing. As long as we see our suffering as evidence of worthlessness, we will not move towards our wounds with anything but judgment. And as long as we see our suffering as evidence of our worthlessness, we will not move towards our wounds with anything but judgment. So again, just inviting you to take some breaths into the heart and just sigh it out. This is how we love ourselves, one breath at a time. So as I read just a little more, I just want to continue inviting you to be with your breath. Notice your sensations in your body. It's important to look into the shadows of our lives and see who lives there. Tattered, withered, hungry, and alone. Bringing these parts of soul back to the table is a central element of our work. Ending their exile means releasing the contempt we hold for these parts of who we are. It means welcoming the full range of our being and restoring ourselves to wholeness. Until then, we will continue to carry this feeling of worthlessness and brokenness. The adult is the only one who can offer this holding of space for our sorrows, our pains, our suffering. It's too easy for the child self to get pulled into his or her primitive agony and dissociated parts or complexes. When sorrow knocks on the door, turning toward the suffering and into the marrow of our grief with the attention and attunement of a caring adult helps to dilute and transmute the trauma and shame into the kind of sensitivity that can inform our compassion to others. So this adult self turning towards the suffering and into the marrow of our grief with the intention and tuning of a caring mother or father, or a caring mentor or guide, whatever feels most accessible for you. A caring divine essence of masculine and feminine. This helps to dilute and transmute the pain and the trauma and the shame into a kind of sensitivity that can inform our compassion for both self and other. So there's no one to blame for this. This is just how it is. And I'm just going to read a poem and then we'll begin our practice by David White. An excerpt from The Coleman's Bed. Be taught now among the trees and rocks how the discarded is woven into shelter. Learn the way things hidden and unspoken slowly proclaim their voice in the world. Find that inward symmetry to all outward appearances. Apprentice yourself to yourself. Begin to welcome back all that you sent away. And be an annunciation. Make yourself a door through which to be hospitable, even to the stranger in you. So let's greet that stranger with some loving kindness. So just turning your attention deeply inward. And notice all the parts of you that you wish were different. The parts of you that you struggle with, the parts of you that you don't desire, that you don't like. aware of your breath. It takes courage to turn towards these parts of ourselves and learn how to create a bridge through curiosity, understanding, compassion. For it's these parts of us that hold our gold. These are the greatest gifts we have to give, hidden inside of these outcast parts of ourselves. And then we look beyond our own lives to the lives of our ancestors and see that these outcast parts were handed down time and time again, growing in strength, growing in their capacity to be exiled. And then again, no one is to blame. We always begin this healing work with acceptance. This is just how it is. All these generations of hurt are setting the stage for a wonderful healing to occur. And we have that capacity deep within our DNA, deep within our bones, if we reach even further back to the time of the standing stones. So just inviting into your breath and into your heart this quality of this divine, nurturing, feminine quality. And if it feels good to you, you can bring in a divine masculine quality and see how when these two energies are at peace, they create life through love. Can we reach back to a time when there was peace between these two energies? And can we let that peace be manifest in our breath and in our voice? So just take some nice deep breaths all the way in. And let your voice pour out of you in a sigh, but let your voice be a part of the sigh, not just breath. Hand on the heart, hand on the belly. Tapping into this capacity for self-love, self-kindness. Taking some deeper breaths down into the belly, into the pelvis. Rooting yourself in the nourishment of the earth. Can you love yourself a little bit more with each breath and each sigh? Can you call in the presence of a kind elder or guide or mentor, teacher or parent, someone who loves you unconditionally, and it's a part of you, a wise and whole part of you that can hold the broken pieces with care and love. As a devotional witness to healing. There. That's it. Let your voice be like that. There. welcoming those parts of you back into the home, into the hearth of your devotion. Because every part of you belongs here. Remember, the most scared and discarded parts have the greatest gift for you. You just have to learn how to accept and love them. How to forgive all the way back through your lineage. Connecting back to a time when no forgiveness was needed. Just keep soothing yourself with your breath and your voice. Let whatever wants to be felt and expressed be felt and expressed. You're safe here. This gentle sound of grounding and encouragement. Yahweh, Yahweh. It's like a sound to help guide yourself home. Yahweh. Connecting with the part of you that knows where to go, how to be. Yahweh. 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 Feel the presence of the standing stones or whatever monuments your ancient ancestors built that have lasted through time, representing an abundance of love, an abundance of resource, an abundance of generosity and kindness and devotion. Capacity to give beyond your lifetime. Feeling your roots drop down into the earth. Feel the medicine of the drum. Imagine all the parts of you gathered around a fire. Inviting everyone in to sit down and gaze at the flame. feels good inviting in those who came before you to gather around this same fire. And the fire is circled by stones. And the people are held by a greater circle of stones. Because the stones remember. They can help heal your bones. And they can welcome every part of you home. You belong here. Forgiving yourself for all the times you've thrown parts of yourself away or hidden in the shadows. Praying to the stones for forgiveness for all the times the shadows have brought chaos and harm into your life. Whether it was your demons or the demons of others, can we find the strength to remember that they're just separate parts of our love, banished to the darkness? Can we offer them a place in our fire and teach them how to breathe and slow down again? Okay, taking a nice deep breath all the way in. Draw the floor of your pelvis up, draw your roots up. Let that sacred fluid rise up through your spine into the mind. When you're ready, sigh it out. Just relax. Stay at the bottom of the breath. Embrace emptiness and nothingness. Embrace the absence of meaning and the absence of self. The great nothing from which you came and will return to. The deep stillness that lives inside of the standing stones. resonating throughout the ages. And if it feels good to you, just inviting your voice into this space where you can stay in the emptiness. Imagine the sounds that the stones have to give you. And just open your body. Soften the body. Feel the stones, but also feel the water and the fire and the earth. Let your elemental being be the breather. heart. Remember your way home. Remember the great stillness of the standing stones. For thousands of years, they've held space for your healing. Nothing to hide, nothing to fear. Only love. Only love. Again, if it feels good to let your voice come in, let it come in. Raise it up. Hold it as long as you want. Feel your connection with earth and sky. And when you feel truly ready, surrender your voice, surrender your body, and return back to emptiness. Finally, on my way to yes, I bump into all the places where I said no to my life, all the untended wounds, the red and purple scars, those hieroglyphs of pain carved into my skin and bones, those coded messages that send me down the wrong street again and again. Where I find them, the old wounds, the old misdirections, and I lift them one by one, close to my heart, and I say, holy, holy. I lift them one by one, close to my heart, and I say, holy, holy. So just gently inviting breath back into the body and a little bit of movement as we close our practice. This practice of deep remembering, of re-inhabiting our wholeness through these simple but timeless and powerful practices of breathing and sounding and relaxing back into the memory of our deep ancestors. And then just finding a way to honor and close your own devotional portal for now. Until next time. Blessings.